Already off to a great start. Hello, welcome back to the 24 hours of the most amazing marketing book ever. I'll be your host for the next roughly 3 hours. I am Chad Powersman, coming to you live from New Jersey, USA. If you are just tuning in and you did not have a chance to check out all of the amazing content that has been going on since early of this morning, check out the QR code over on the screen here. That will take you actually to the hub to be able to go back and rewatch all of the amazing content that everyone. This is session number 5. We've had 4 hosts before me that have been fantastic. They've taken us through the whole day. I'm batting, I guess, kind of clean up here, and then we've got one more session going on tonight to bring it home. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have Julia Bramble on today. She wrote actually our Twitter chapter, and she is not able to make it. So let me just get her kind of bona fides. Julia Bramble, she's a social media marketing consultant, trainer, and speaker. She is a former forensic scientist, and she now focuses on the details of human connection rather than the details of DNA analysis. Um, she is fantastic. She wrote an amazing chapter on Twitter. She could not be here live. So, what we're going to do, we're going to actually play. She sent us in a fantastic clip talking about her chapter of the book. Then we're going to come back and we're actually going to take a little kind of peek behind the curtain of all of the folks that have made this fantastic amazing technology work all day long for the folks that have tuned in. So watch Julia's section, and then we're going to come back and have a great conversation of kind of all of the technology, all of the content, everything that it took to get this day pulled together and executed for those of you that have been watching. So here's Julia, and I will see you on the other side.
It's Julia Bramble here, and I want to share with you some of the top tips from my chapter in The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever. So my chapter is all about Twitter. This seemed like a great choice last September when all 30 plus of us authors were deciding which chapter we wanted to write. Now, of course, since last September, being on Twitter has been a bit of a roller coaster, to put it mildly. But I have to say, it is still my favourite social media platform. And I think it's because of the immediacy of what's going on there. You get to hear the news there generally before anybody else. The conversations that happen there happen really quickly, and it's perfectly acceptable to just join in a conversation that's already happening or comment on what someone else has said. To me, it feels easier to do that there than anywhere else. And to me, that's one of the strengths of using Twitter. So in the chapter, in the book, I go through 10 ways that you can easily 10 times your impact on Twitter. And they all stem from this: being human and putting ourselves into the shoes of the people that we want to attract and interact with. I think so often when we're marketing a business, whether that's our own business or whether that's in a marketing team for a bigger business, we forget about the human on the other end of what we're putting out there on social media. And my number one tip for people, if things aren't going right with their social media, is actually to take a step back and to look at the social media activity that you've put out there and just put yourself in the shoes of your ideal audience, of that one person that you would love to see your post and respond, and think, well, actually, is this the best it could be for them rather than for you? And Twitter especially really relies on us putting ourselves into the shoes of our ideal audience. So one of the tips I give in the chapter, don't want to give all the secrets away, but one of the tips I give in the chapter is to include value within the tweet itself. So many people are still using Twitter as a broadcast channel, and what they do is they share lots of links to their blog on their website, or to their podcast, or to their YouTube channel. But of course, if you're sharing a link within a tweet, what you're actually asking somebody to do is to read the tweet, to take action, to click on that link, to go away to that external website, consume the content there, which is probably 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if it's a long piece of content. Then ideally come back and comment or engage with your original tweet. Now, what actually, if you put it like that, are the chances of that happening? Plus, let's remember, of course, that Twitter, just like all the other social media platforms, doesn't like people leaving Twitter and going elsewhere. So when you include a link in your tweet, it gets less reach than a tweet without a link. So make sure that at least some of your tweets actually contain value within the tweet and aren't just sending people elsewhere to actually access that value. Something else I think we forget when we're a business using Twitter is that in amongst all the how-to posts that we're sharing and all that perceived value that we're putting out there, actually people are on Twitter looking for connection and to feel like they belong. So we need to be also including some tweets that share behind the scenes or something personal about us, some other way in which someone can feel connected to us, because that might be the first tweet they've ever seen from us, and they're much more likely to form a connection with us as a human being through us talking about something more personal than business than just about an information-based tweet. Although, of course, they're valid. I'm not saying that we don't want to be sharing information-based tweets, because we do. They're going to help our audience. They're going to also help them to trust us. They're going to help them see us as the experts. So they are really, really valuable. But we want to scatter in other types of tweet as well. And especially tweets that show a little bit of behind the scenes, show a bit about who we are, show a bit about our values, whether that's us personally, if we are the business, or the business itself. Maybe share some stories about the staff that work within the business. Some funny stories, some stories about fundraising, maybe stuff that goes on in the office, some stories about events that you've been to or trips that you've had, even something as simple as a photo of the view out of the window, for example, can be a great tweet. You don't have to be always sharing big information, big how-to content. And I think those are probably the most important tips that I can give you from my chapter in The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever. But of course, the book is about far more than just Twitter. There are 30 plus chapters about all sorts of marketing ideas, tips, trends to give you massive inspiration and to help you ramp up your marketing efforts. So I really recommend that you grab a copy and dive in. Thank you so much for having me, and I really hope that this has been helpful. Bye for now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Julia. Hopefully when you watch this on the replay, really appreciate you sending that in. So, all right, we are going to bring a few folks on stage here. Welcome, Kami, Fiona, Ian. This is the brain trust that made everything, we're 2/3 of the way through, that's made everything happen today. So let's kick it off with you, Kami. like why? What what was the why?
Why?
And then we'll talk about would you ever do this again. But let's start with the what was the creation kind of, what was the nut of this idea?
Sure. So back in, well, gosh, it was the end of last year, I sat down with Mark Schaefer to talk about the marketing for this book because I knew that we needed to have somebody take that over from him. He was in the middle of his own book launch, and I knew there was no way, no way that he could lead the marketing. So I offered myself, my agency, and to do that. And we started to talk a little bit about what would be a befitting marketing strategy for a book such as this, called The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever. And I felt like we needed to have the most amazing marketing book launch ever to match the brand of the book. And so one of the ideas that I had immediately is that everybody launches a book. There's always books being launched every day, every day, every day. So, how could we stand out in a crowded marketplace and give insane value, like as much value as we possibly could, to the people that were going to buy our book, that were going to read our book? So I thought, why not have like the most amazing marketing launch ever? And why not make it 24 hours? Because we have authors from all over the world. And so we would need a bunch of time zones to make it work. Plus, when you have over 30 authors, like 35, 36, I don't know, it changes all the time. I don't know. There's been a couple dropping in, dropping out. I think we're at 35 right now, but 35 authors or more. And the thing is that when you have that many people, how do you highlight all those people in a way that also gives them a piece of an asset to work with? So this live stream allows the people that are involved in it to take their little piece, and that becomes an asset for their business, for their chapter, for the book. And then in addition, the people that are watching can grab that and learn a bunch of stuff in the moment. Plus, we're going to put it into a hub where you can search it, a searchable hub later. So if you get on our email list, which you will see, you've seen the QR code already, but the QR code is in here. If you get on our email list, I will send you the hub, the whole hub, the searchable hub with it. Like, I think it's going to be next week sometime once I get it all branded and up for you. So that is why we did it, because we wanted to provide you the most value that you could possibly get. And we wanted to live up to the name of the book. And we wanted to give something to the authors as well, who have spent a lot of their time in this. So that's really the why. The why is all about giving, giving, giving. A win, win, win. Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally love it. You've done a phenomenal job organizing all this. So let's actually jump over to Fiona, because I know you've been integral in helping with that organization. We've had 6 volunteers to host. We've had 35 volunteers to be interviewed. Again, lots of time zones. I'm in New Jersey. You're in Australia, right? Which I learned has half-hour time zones recently, which is just like totally insane. So talk to me a little bit about kind of all of the work that you put into this, organizing, writing the content, everything that kind of needed to make the lives of everyone else that's participating just a little bit easier.
Yeah, well, I've done a few similar kind of events before, so I luckily had my very handy spreadsheet, which I was able to rework in order for us to use it. So I think one of the most important things is when you've got global is that you've got to make sure that you are aligning people and trying as best as you can to align them into a reasonable time zone. Unfortunately, when I work with the US and it's Australia, it's me that misses out most of the time with the wee hours stuff. But it's fine. It's just after 8 a.m. here. So it's Thursday. So I'm coming to you from the future to tell you everything's fine and the whole event went perfect. But
Thank you.
The most important thing is keeping everyone in the loop, and Cammie's been brilliant with that as well, with lots of other admin. For me, it was like getting an outline of a sort of running sheet so that people have an idea how the flow goes. If you've been doing it for ages, it kind of comes more naturally, but for some people, they'd never done anything like that before. So being able to have a bit of a running sheet that let them see, okay, I need to do this now. Here's a little bit of a script that's flexible, because we never want to sound like robots, right? Because we are the humans. But I think just making all those things so that people feel really well supported is, I think, the most important thing.
Yeah, and you've done, speaking as someone who was both being interviewed this morning and then also hosting the session, you did a fantastic job providing all of that. Very clear communication, concise, everything that I needed to make all this run. And then talking about, what we needed to make this run. Ian, you were kind of the technical guru behind all this. For those of you watching live right now, we are on Ian's YouTube channel. He's graciously been letting us use his online studio for the production today. So Ian, talk a little bit about kind of from the technical end, maybe just give us kind of what the tech stack has been, what your experience, leading up to this has been like, and all the other kind of, for the folks that really want to get hands-on, what it takes from the technical side to make this happen.
Yeah, well, you have to choose the right software. It's the software, and you have to think about what happens when things go wrong. What are your backups? And I think part of the reason why I got myself involved in all of this is, well, I did write the chapter on live streaming, so it kind of felt like I should probably step up and get involved. And I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the whole thing. It's been amazing working with the team. Cami and Fiona have been amazing. It's been so cool. Just I've gone to bed at night, and then the next morning I see these WhatsApp messages like through the night. So they go so, and everything's sorted. So from a tech point of view, there are lots of different live streaming tools out there. I personally, for my business, I use a software called Ecamm Live. It's Mac software, and it is amazing at a lot of things. But for the kind of thing that we're doing today, when we're having a lot of remote guests, and we're wanting the host. So Chad, you're hosting today. You need to be, you're remote. You need to just log into a web-based service. And so something like either a web-based live video tool like StreamYard or Restream. There's quite a few others now. There's Wave Video. We wanted something that did all of those things. And the reason why we chose Restream, or why I recommended Restream, is for a number of reasons. But one of them, first of all, I have an account which allows us to have multiple hosts log in as team members. That's number one. But number two, I think you were saying, Chad, that StreamYard has this now, but Restream was one of the first tools out there that has a facility called Pairs, which means that guests and other people can add their channels to the stream. So the default channels that we're streaming to are my YouTube, my LinkedIn and Facebook. And I think Cami and Fiona, you've added yours to it as well. But each guest can add their channel. So we're actually potentially, I don't know how many, I can see up there, we're broadcasting to about,
I think
14? 13 places? No, 23.
24, 23, yeah.
23 places.
Plus, if anybody's watching on LinkedIn, they're not being counted. The LinkedIn watchers aren't counted.
No, but in terms of the actual streams, we're broadcasting to 23 different streams. Now, in terms of like that's a really good point, Cami, because one of the things that we can see how many concurrent users there are, how many concurrent viewers there are, which is great, but it doesn't include LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's just, I don't know, they're just a little bit selfish with their data. They don't like to tell us that kind of information. So that, and actually earlier on, I don't know what it's like at the moment, we had quite a few people watching on LinkedIn. So yeah, that's been great, but obviously, we've had to kind of teach everyone, make sure everyone's comfortable with using the technology. A lot of people are used to using other tools. Some people have never gone live at all. So it's all been quite a fun experience.
Yeah, it's been fantastic as a watcher, as an interviewee, and now as a host. And yes, Restream, super simple to use. I mean, just the last couple of years, the tools that have popped up. I agree. I've used OBS in the past, which is amazing and powerful, but it is not user friendly. Like they make no, they don't claim to be. So yeah, all of these tools have been fantastic for these types of things. So
there's one other thing that I forgot to mention. Of course, and you've been highlighting it, and I know Cami got really excited about this earlier. I did, and this is the QR code thing, because when you put that up on the screen, if somebody takes, someone scans Fiona's getting excited. If you scan this QR code, we get a little notification. In fact, I could just scan it now. I know this is kind of cheating.
I know, it's so fun. It makes me dance every time it happens. It tells us that you're scanning it.
There we go. You see, I scanned the QR code. So if you scan that, it's great. It's like live shopping. And in fact, there is this facility in Restream for you to add sales as well. So I've not actually played it. We could have connected actually the book directly. I don't know, but maybe that's for next time.
Man, we could have done one of those, like, Fiona doesn't go to sleep until we sell 100 copies type of thing. Yeah, I'm not signing up for it, but I'll sign up. And that's a great. Let me get rid of the QR code for now. So with a couple of minutes that we got left, because we have Al Boyle, who wrote the chapter on, let me make sure, client's attention, grabbing your client's attention. He's coming up in about 7 minutes. So before we kind of wrap up for here, would love from the three of you, like, would you do this again, or would you recommend this type of stunt live stream for somebody else? And then maybe also like something that you've learned. I know this isn't really just the live. Hey, someone scanned the QR code.
You see me dance when it happens. I always dance when it happens. What do you? So would you either recommend it or would you do it again? And then maybe like one learning that you've gotten from this, like or one takeaway from kind of putting this all together, organizing this. Cami, you've done a ton for the support of the book launch, but just with this kind of live stream, maybe we can start with you. Kind of, what are your feelings and like what's one nugget from this experience? Okay, so yes, absolutely, I would do it again, but only if it fit the product. Do you know what I'm saying? This was a specific thing for a specific time. But what I will say is that you have to like events. You need it for launches. Am I like freezing? I feel like
you froze for a second there. Just repeat the first sentence.
Events for launches are really helpful. This story is about the people watching today. It's about them. And so that's really what I would say is the most important part about this is you have to think about your strategy in terms of how it will serve your audience. And so, yes, I would do this again if it made sense to do so. We've done other kinds of things where one of my partners, he launched a book, and if certain amount of books were sold in a certain amount of time, he got ice poured all over his head. I mean, you can do all kinds of fun stunts that make your audience be a part of the experience. And so it's an experience. And this is an experience. And I'm like so grateful to Fiona, to Ian, to Marcy, who helped with some of the email advertising, and all the hosts, all of the guests, all of you, because without the entire team, this does not happen. Everybody has to work together. I go to bed at midnight and hand it off to Fiona as she wakes up. She goes to bed at midnight and I hand it off to her, or she hands it off to me. And that's how it's been for the past since Friday. So talk to me about doing it again when I have some sleep, but it absolutely was worth it, I think. And we are trending in sales for the book. So it's working too.
Yeah. That's the metrics are always that support the effort are always good. Fiona, you and I are going to have a chance to talk in about 2 hours, I think, around your chapter in the book, about community. And so maybe we'll talk a little bit about kind of video then. But with just this experience, helping to organize this, what has been your reaction and kind of key takeaway?
I love it, and I've forgotten how much I love doing behind the scenes stuff with live events. To be honest, I love engaging with people and being in service, helping them out. So it always feels great to do that. I think the biggest takeaway when you're doing this is organisation. It's it, and a great team, and dream team for sure. Such an honour and a privilege to work with these amazing people. I had known Cami before this, but I've got to know her now, and really excited to get to meet you later on in June. Yes. Ian, I've met before, and he trained me very early on with OBS before we had all these other cool tools to use. So I remember that early course. I was an early adopter, and what let me down then was in Australia we had the worst internet in the world. So I think I ran a weekly show for about a month, and then it was doing my head in. So I gave up, and that was in about 2015 or something like that. So maybe 2014, I'm not sure, somewhere like that. But it was, so it's come a long way, and I think just have a great team, and you'll be right. Just keep organised, keep the communication up.
For sure. Fantastic. Ian, take us home.
Yeah, well, it's a similar thing. I like Fiona, I've really enjoyed it. I love working on my own, having my own business, but sometimes you can feel a bit lonely, and just working with other people, bouncing ideas off people. I've just felt really energized today, and I shouldn't be. It's a 24-hour live stream. Why should I be feeling like really excited? And I think we all have, despite maybe not having so much sleep. So I think it's working in a team, and that reflects the whole idea behind the book as well. We've worked together as a team. This is a collaborative effort, and it is, as Fiona was saying, organization, the spreadsheet, all of that together. I would not have been able to do any of the technical side of things without that. So you have to have good kind of technical stuff, but you also have to have good admin and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's been amazing. I've really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next one, really. I'm not, but as Cami said, you've got to have a good reason. Don't just do it for the sake of a 24-hour live.
Book, the follow-up book.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been watching today. There are definitely enough ideas that have been thrown out over the past 12 hours that people could definitely write a second book.
Totally. But just make sure you scan so put up the QR code for us real quick, because how you can thank us for all the work I did for the book. Well, the hub is fine too, because you can buy the book on the hub as well.
I want to see someone scan this. I want to see someone.
So I just bought the paperback. By the way, I already had bought here. Let's take a picture. Everybody point. All right, 1, 2, 3, point. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I got it, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. I had the wrong thing open. 1, 2. Well, no. We'll do it in a minute. Sorry, you got to get to the next person. But yeah, scan this, because if you can thank us, if there's any way you can thank us, scan this right here, because even the authors. I bought a paperback today, guys. I bought a paperback, and guess what? It's coming on Friday. Oh, wow. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm going to have this thing in my hands on Friday. So I would love it if you scan the code and, just buy a book right now. I think that's the best thing we can do right now to thank us for our hours and hours and hours of no sleep. Thank you. Buy a book for Fiona. She never sleeps.
I mean, yes.
I have to wait until the 25th to get mine. It's a little bit slower to Australia.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I'm telling you, this girl, she gets up in the middle of the night and she's like on the WhatsApp going, "What are you guys doing? What's up? What do you need?" We're like, "Go to bed." That's what we need. We need you to sleep.
Well, awesome. This has been fantastic. I appreciate you. Yeah, all the work that you've been doing. I mean, the comments that have been coming in both in here and then over in the Discord of I cannot thank you enough for setting up the whole day, but then also thank you for joining this, letting people kind of take a look behind the scenes of what it actually takes to get something like this off the ground, running as smoothly as it's been. Just really appreciate all the time the three of you have put into this. And like I said, the best way to show us some love is click that QR code, buy a copy of the book.
If you want to show extra love, as long as you're not an author, if you want to show some extra love,
leave a comment. Yeah, leave a review over on Amazon. Yes.
On Amazon.
We'd appreciate that. Sign up for an email. Leave a comment. Go find us streaming somewhere on LinkedIn and leave a comment over there to pump the algorithm for us. Lots of things that folks can do. But I want to get over to Al. He's over in the green room. So we'll be back. I'll be back in about a minute. I'm just going to go feed my dogs, and then we're going to get started with the next author from the most amazing marketing book ever. See everyone in a minute. Thanks. Al, how's it going? Oh, I think you are maybe on mute, Al. We cannot hear you. Check your settings and go to audio and make sure that you're have the right microphone picked. In the meantime, I will vamp a little bit. So welcome. If anyone is just tuning in, I do see we have a couple of additional viewers that we didn't have a couple of minutes ago. Welcome to session 5 of 24 hours of amazing marketing ideas, celebrating the launch of the most amazing marketing book ever. If you have not already, scan the QR code here. It will take you to the hub for all of the content that we have created throughout the day. It will also let you sign up to get updates on when there's new content, when the book is officially live, even though you can purchase the Kindle and apparently order the paperback version as well. So make sure to check that out. Al, are you with us yet?
You hearing me now?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Welcome. Great. How is your day going? Where are you dialing in from today?
North Carolina, the Raleigh area.
Oh, excellent. We're staying on the East Coast for now. So
East Coast is where it's at.
Yeah. So welcome. Thanks, Al, for joining. Al Boyle is a freelance copywriter, author, and humorist. So I expect at least a couple of chuckles. And you were a co-author on chapter 13 titled Create a Powerful Marketing Message to Grab Your Ideal Client's Attention. And so this is fantastic. So one, thank you for joining us today. Want to dig into the book, but from a personal perspective, I left the corporate world 2 years ago. I went out on my own. I became an accidental entrepreneur, as I say. We're not here to talk about me, but I'm your chapter in this book. I'm incredibly interested in, as I'm now taking next step from kind of how do I go from beyond my existing network of folks into actually trying to bring new clients into my business. So really excited to kind of dig into your chapter and your experience in this area. So, just to kick things off, kind of what inspired you to join and become a contributor to the Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever?
Well, first, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I joined the community about a year ago. And when I learned of the book project, I was pretty excited because I've been a professional writer for a little over 13 years, corporate world. And I've also been doing freelance work. I've published a couple of crime thriller novels. So long form doesn't intimidate me, and writing every day doesn't intimidate me. And I thought it was a perfect opportunity to be a part of a project with Mark Schaefer, of all people. And the community just brings us, it's an all-star team. And I thought it would be a terrific experience. And I was fortunate that when I got to the sign-up sheet, though my co-author Giuseppe Frattoni, and sorry, Giuseppe, I didn't roll that R the way you do, but I did try. I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to welcome me as a collaborator, and we had a blast. And I know he was on earlier. He was in Rome, Italy, and we made it work across the miles, and I really enjoyed the experience with him.
Amazing. Actually, up next is going to be Marion Abrams, who is my co-author for my chapter as well. So talk a little bit more about, you said you've written kind of whole books. Now you're like being asked to write a very focused, like very targeted chapter as part of this, and then also have to collaborate with someone. Did you guys hit it off right away? How did you kind of collaborate to make sure that, every word that you're saying is bringing value to the reader? Like, what was that experience like?
It was a challenge because when you have a word count and you have a format that you're looking to follow, you want to make sure that you're delivering impact with that. The wonderful thing is, from the first time Giuseppe and I met, we hit it off. We found an easy shorthand, and we both had the same approach in mind for how to dissect copywriting and messaging. And then the fun part was, how do we communicate it in our voice and try to connect with, whether it's a marketer or a business owner, make sure that it's relatable to all audiences and that even seasoned marketers get some value out of it. We met over a period of weeks via Google Meets and talked through. I'd put some content in there. He'd take a look at it, throw his comments in, and we workshopped it to the finish line. And then toward the end of that process, ChatGPT was just starting to make its noise. So we got to incorporate at least the early part of that into the book. And I was excited to bring that part of it to the table and be a little closer to the cutting edge with the release.
Yeah, I mean, I think persistent throughout a lot of the conversations today has been that like impact of AI. And, I said in my session earlier, we could probably rewrite this entire book with the exact same chapters and just then talk about what the impact of AI for all 35 chapters has been. And
Exactly.
that would be another thing. But, before we kind of think about that, I think particularly for your chapter, right, it's like, just having good writing, good copy editing is kind of core, I think, a foundational for a lot of the other topics that are talked in the book. So, what were some of, don't have to give everything away, but maybe can you highlight like one or two of the big takeaways that, from you and Giuseppe working together, you were like, these are the top two things we've got to get into our chapter in the book.
Sure. I don't want to say easy because it isn't as easy as it seems, as anybody in marketing would tell you. But the fundamentals are the fundamentals for a reason. They've been proven timeless. And we wanted to make sure that the fundamentals and the frameworks were a part of our chapter. So someone new to marketing would have a roadmap of sorts to follow to know how to structure their content. But the other piece that we were really keen to focus in on was connecting with your audience. Because if we think about how we consume content, whether we're reading a book or an article, a blog post, a social media post, we tend to make rapid fire decisions about, are we interested or not? I mean, anybody who scrolls through their social media feed can relate to that. So we wanted to communicate to particularly aspiring marketers, but also business owners who may be daring to venture deeper into the marketing waters, that connecting with your audience is key, because if you don't have them from the first sentence, you're not going to have them from at the last paragraph. And we wanted to make sure that they were taking the time to get to know their audience well enough to be able to connect with them. And that's about not only knowing what their pain points or aspirations are, but also speaking to them in language that resonates with them.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in my session before too. I actually hate writing. It's why I became a podcaster, but I also recognize the kind of value and importance and the time and energy that it takes to be a good writer. So I'm interested, you talked about you've written everything from fiction novels to now something like this, probably, I'm sure, lots of things in between, some for yourself, some for client work. What's kind of maybe, looking back over your career, what are maybe some foundational things for people that like really want to strengthen? They're like, look, I've been an okay writer, I didn't go to school for English, or whatever it is. What are some things that you recommend, maybe particularly for marketers, that can just help them become better writers?
I think reading a lot has made a huge difference for my evolution, and certainly what's known in the industry as swipe files. If something really worked, or something, even if something just resonated with you, save that and take it apart, figure out how they drew you in. And if you ended up clicking to buy or even just reading the whole post, what was it that drew you in? And I think it all comes down to storytelling. It's easier to connect with people when you tell them a story. If you get someone in front of a room and they're just giving you a dry recitation of facts, then it's easy to just let your mind wander. But if someone has a great story to tell, then you find that you can relate to that. And that goes back millennia. So I believe that that's the most effective way that anyone can look to connect with their target audience.
That's yeah, really great kind of way to think about it. The kind of key, whether you're telling storytelling, to your point, on stage, in the written word, through audio, whatever it happens to be, that is a core of it. And then I love the idea about you need to be a consumer, right, of whatever it is that you do. Being a reader, I mean, I know I'm one of those people that, like, I'm constantly watching. I consume a ton of podcasts, but also lots of pop culture, lots of TV. And then I do find myself, so I'll be like, oh, it's been like 2 months since I've read an actual book. Like, let me jump back in. And I'm in that period now where I'm just like, before I go to bed, when I wake up, like I'm back in kind of a reading habit. So I'm interested, a couple of things. Let's start on the fun side, like fiction. Who are you reading right now? What do you recommend? Who are favorite series, favorite authors? Kind of, what's the thing that you recommend if someone just wants like some escapism? We're about to get into the summer. What's the thing they should be taking on a plane or to the beach?
Okay. Well, I'm a longtime martial artist, so James Scott Bell's Romeo series, I've loved it because his main character, Romeo, is a former cage fighter turned, I guess you would call him I'm trying to think of the right word for it. he's in a way kind of the fixer, the equalizer type
Okay.
character, and a very low key character, almost like a Jack Reacher type, until he has to get into action, and then you see what he's capable of. But also a well-read character too, so he's constantly dropping quotes from literature that are just relevant to the topic, and you get laughs out of it. So that, and I also just finished a series. I think the author's name, and forgive me on the pronunciation, dear author Brianna Lusky. She has this fascinating character who's a psychologist and a sociopath, and the way that she solves crimes by referencing not only her understanding of herself, but also recognizing things in other people. That's a fascinating series for the beach.
Interesting. So a little Dexter-esque
Yes.
kind
Yes.
of. Excellent. Those, I'm gonna have to check those out. My crime fighting tends to lean more towards like the urban fantasy supernatural area. So
Okay.
like I will check those out if I want something maybe a little bit more grounded without, you know, elves and demons and vampires in it. And then, you know, what on the bringing it maybe back to kind of marketing and your day to day, and for folks here, you know, what are you just enjoying reading, listening to right now that kind of, you know, that you think that you feel are still making you a better writer, a better marketer, whatever it happens to be?
Well, right now I'm reading a book called, I think, Outlive, Dr. Peter Attia, and it's talking about longevity, which is a topic that I'm keenly interested in, and it's just fascinating to see how medicine's advancing, and I love that the way that some people can go back and look at things that fundamentally change how an industry views itself. Because in the book he talks about medicine 3.0 and a new way of approaching things, and how some of the findings from years ago, well, that was where we were then in terms of what we were capable of knowing, and here's where we can go moving forward. On the marketing front, I'd say that the book that I most recently read and enjoyed, and I'm going to drop Mark's name here with Belonging to the Brand. I loved the notion of community and that being where marketing is headed. And I love the idea that brands seeking to form that deeper connection with their customers or potential customers can expect to reap the benefits, because their customers become an extension of or entirely their marketing team. And I thought that was a fascinating take, and I love the idea of it. And at some point, I think I'll be involved with a community very integrally.
Fantastic. Yeah, appreciate all of those recommendations that you gave us.
Okay.
So keeping with that, you know, we have I've noticed that particularly the Rise community, we have a lot of seasoned veterans, a lot of us, you know, that have been around. Let's think about kind of the other extreme. If this is, you know, someone that is we're in college graduation season, you know, so we've got a lot of people maybe working their way into the workforce for the first time. I think we're also, you know, in this economic downturn. We're not really sure, right? Lots of layoffs and things like that. We've seen this happen in kind of 2000, 2008. I think a lot of people like me are becoming entrepreneurs, going out on their own, leaving kind of corporate world. So we've got a lot of, you know, there seems to be this kind of entrepreneurial boom. You know, what are maybe some, you know, whether it's in your book or whether it's in your chapter in the book, what's maybe some advice that you would give for people that, you know, first starting their career or just starting, you know, a brand new attempt at launching a company or consulting, whatever it is, you know, what are maybe one or two tips that you would give to those people in terms of like thinking about starting out, what they should be considering kind of at the beginning of the path?
Great question. Next question. I'm kidding.
I'll give you some time. We can. I'll give you. I'll plug the QR code for those of you who haven't checked out. We've got.
Oh, no, I've
some
got
new
you.
things. Okay.
I'd say, I think reading the seminal works in marketing, of course, that gives you that foundational understanding. But then beyond that, there are so many great newsletters out there today, and they offer different experiences. Some are curation experiences, some take that deep dive into a particular topic, and some are walking through case studies. So you can see where a situation was, what actions were taken, and what the end result was. And I find those fascinating and informative. And I think for someone who wants to get up to speed quickly, you can subscribe to a couple dozen newsletters and still get through them in a half an hour if you're skimming for only the topics that interest you. So I think that's been helpful to me, and I'd recommend it to someone else who wants to wade into the water a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love the kind of resurgency over the last couple of years of the newsletter business, and like that it's a viable business for actually some folks. Right, we've seen some great examples of either creators or businesses that have started, from the newsletter business because of platforms now like Substack and Beehive, right, Patreon, and all of these things. For let's give an example there. Someone's like, hey, I've really got a passion for something. I think I'm going to go start it out, and I'm going to start writing a weekly newsletter. What's from a writing perspective, what are some pitfalls that you think people should be looking out for? Maybe some things to avoid, as it relates to, again, kind of the topic of the chapter that you wrote for the book.
So if we're talking about how one might approach a newsletter and be successful with it, I'd say it's about, you have the advantage of knowing that you're writing for a particular niche. So you owe it to yourself to know that customer really well and having a style that connects with them. So they enjoy reading your material because they like your style, or dare say it's entertaining, but they're also learning. And I know there are a few newsletters that I really look forward to when they hit my inbox, because I like the approach that they take. It's not just, here it is and buy. It's weaving a tale. There's some clever turns of phrase that make you appreciate their writing capabilities, but they're also leaving the value bombs along the way. And I mean, just a few like Ann Handley or The Tilt or Stack Marketer. There are just so many that really make you look forward to, I can't wait to open that one up and just immerse myself for a few minutes and get some great takeaways.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that same, like, you need to be reading, right? If that's what you're doing, you've got to know your segment, and that's what I love, kind of where we are in this day and age of like the creator economy. It's like you could go really deep on your topic, you can go really deep on the methodology, right? Whether it's video, podcasts, and that's one of the things that I love, kind of how the book was organized as well, is you can kind of read it for this foundational type of information in the early chapters, and then kind of go really, really deep. So we've got a couple minutes left. What gets you excited these days, from a marketing perspective or from a writing perspective? Where are you spending maybe what little free time we all have, either researching, playing around with, or what are you excited about right now?
First and foremost, I love that marketing is always changing, so there's always something new to learn. I'm proud to be a lifelong learner, and marketing is up to the challenge. And I know with AI, we're all going to learn more about that and its capabilities. I mean, to think that it's capable of writing books, creating YouTube channels, and who knows what else, it's just incredible where the technology could go. And I'm not sure how any legislative efforts will impact that, but knowing that there's always something new to learn, and it'll give new opportunities for people who want to specialize in areas that may not have evolved yet. It's just an exciting time to be in this business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about the marketing and content creation space. It's there's always something new, a new platform, a new style. Even we've heard it from a lot of the authors today, right? As soon as you think you've mastered YouTube throws something new out there. As soon as you think you have a great newsletter, out comes Substack and Beehive. As soon as whatever it happens to be. So like you've always got to be moving forward. With the last 2 minutes here, would just love to turn it over to you. Any parting words on kind of your experience in the book, anything that maybe that you learned about yourself, or you as a writer, or you as a marketer, while going through this process?
Sure. I appreciate that. First, thank you again, Chad, for having me.
Yeah.
And I'd say being a part of the community has been eye-opening in all the right ways. I've been thrilled to rub virtual elbows with this community and to benefit from everything that everyone else has gone through to get to where they are today. And I look forward to more of that. The last Rise call that we had relative to the book, Mark had asked the question, hey, if we did this again, how many people would be on board for it? And a lot of hands shot up, and mine was one of them. I thought this was a lot of fun and a learning experience, because I mentioned on that call, though I've launched my books, this coordinated effort has been mind-blowing to see. And just, I marvel at the skills of everyone, yourself included, that have made everything leading up to the launch happen, and now this live stream. So just mad respect and appreciation.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I would echo the same. I'm going to have lots of opportunities. But yeah, thank you for taking the time tonight. Thank you for contributing to the book, kind of sharing your knowledge here today, along with the chapter that you co-wrote. It's been I think everyone, the thing I've been hearing all day is just how great of an experience this has been. It had the potential to be utterly chaotic. And I don't, while at times maybe we've skirted that edge, it's been incredibly rewarding, I think fulfilling for a lot of folks. And so, appreciate you and everyone else that I know is either tuned in, sharing this content, for taking the time. And appreciate it, Al. And so for the folks that are still tuning in here, I'm going to throw up the book is available. The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever is available for purchase right now on Amazon. Click the QR code. I'm going to be here for another couple of hours. Coming up next, I've got Marion Abrams, who co-wrote the podcasting chapter with me. So I'm excited about that. So I am, I'm going to go, actually, Marion why don't I bring up Marion now? We're freewheeling here, right? I hear my dog scratching at the back. So what the two of you talk for like 30 seconds. I'm going to go let them out, and I'll be right back.
This is
Absolutely.
awesome. Hey, Al, I was just listening to you and it was so fun. I mean,
Thank you.
like Chad says, the coolest part of this book, and like everybody said, has been just getting to be a part of this group. But since I've got you here as a copywriter, if you had to give one tip for headline writing, what would it be? Because that's always the key, the headline or the title, right?
Sure. I think just front load that headline for the greatest impact, because it's that headline is sort of a microcosm of a bigger work, and you want to grab people right from the first words.
So I always have this question of how much should you write your headline or your title for SEO, and how much should you write your title to be grabby or attention grabbing and mysterious and curiosity engaging?
I know that would be a wonderful debate with many marketers. I look to keep it simple and say, I want to be clear, And hopefully the idea I've come up with grabs people, because writing for SEO, and I understand the value in SEO for certain, but I'm writing for people. That's who I want to grab. And hopefully I'm checking enough, or preferably all, SEO boxes in doing so.
I love that reframe, is you're writing for people, because that's what it all comes down to. If people aren't reading it and processing, right, then what's the point? Even if you have a great engaging headline,
Absolutely.
yeah, where do they go? Right.
That's right. So what's your take on that? How do you look to approach it?
I waffle a little bit, because I do know, if you're looking at, more my place is podcasting and YouTube videos, right? And, with a podcast, if the episode title doesn't grab somebody's attention, they're not going to listen. It doesn't really have to be clever, though. It has to be clear, right? But with YouTube, I think that curiosity factor, I don't know, I fall for it all the time.
6 amazing headlines you need to read to become a great copy editor.
Well, I heard, who was it this morning? It was on this very live stream this morning. Was it Robbie who was talking about email? And he said they had experimented with, and one of the ideas was sending an email with a redacted list. So it'd be like, the top 10 somethings, but a couple of them were hidden. So it's still valuable because you see the other 8, but it compelled people to go and click through and read the rest of the article. And I thought, wow, that's pretty clever.
Interesting. Well, the other thing I have to say, Al, again, thank you for sticking around, Marion. Thanks for jumping in there. What you can also tell what topics are on my brain, because Marion, I read Marion's message in our chat here as, want AI and I to chat while you help the dogs? Because I told her, because now when I see Al, all I see is AI. I'm seeing it in the comments. It's like, oh, I can't wait to read AI's chapter. I can't. Thank you so much, AI, for tuning in.
And I was so hoping this event wouldn't go there, that my name. Anyway, bye, Chad.
Thanks, Al. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
I
Good
appreciate
seeing
it.
you again, Marion. Take care.
You too.
Hello, Marion Abrams. Thank
Hello,
you for
Chad.
joining me. I will have to go let them back in a couple of minutes, but that's fine. They'll, it's nice outside here. Welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
Today, I am in my home office, which is secretly my mudroom, but it doesn't look like it. It's well disguised, in Vermont.
Amazing. So we're staying mostly on the East Coast. You're a little inbound, but Eastern time zone. So for those who don't know, let me introduce Marion Abrams. Is the co-author of Chapter 10 of the most amazing book ever, the best chapter, The Power of Podcasting. Marion is a podcast producer and consultant. She grew her client show to over 45 million listens, which is amazing. That's got to be like top 0.01% of the podcasting world, right? Because it's something like the top 20, like 80% of them don't make it past like episode 20 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it's episode 7 or something.
Yeah. So a fantastic job there. You've been working in podcasting for a long time, so excited for us to just have a great conversation today. For folks that are just tuning in or watching this later, let me just give the plug now. If you want, please scan the QR code. It's over here. We'll get that screenshot later. Go to the hub for the most amazing marketing book ever. That's where you'll find all the information, all the replays of all the videos happening today. Sign up for the email. I know you can order the book right now. We'll put that up later. You can get both the Kindle and the paperback, and I know that they are working on the audiobook version as well. So if the 24 hours of hearing 30 authors today wasn't enough and you want to hear us all talk again, you will be able to get the audiobook pretty soon. So, let's just start from the beginning. What made you also raise your hand and say, like, yes, not only do I want to be part of this book, and then also like, why was it podcasting that you wanted to write about?
I love, I had the questions in advance so I could prepare. And I was thinking about this and I was remembering back to that initial conversation in the Rise group in Discord when Mark started talking about this book idea and doing it as a group. And I'll tell you, I thought, oh, I wish I was qualified enough to write that book. I wish I was, had the reputation to write that book. And then I got out of my own way and thought, well, that's for Mark and everybody else to decide, and I will just volunteer. And it was a very timid kind of like, well, maybe if you think it would be good, I would do it. And the one place once I joined the project that I pushed a little harder was I really wanted to do podcasting. And that's because at the time, in addition to having the clients podcast, I was coaching. That was my primary job. And that was a place where I learned a lot about podcasting, was coaching so many different podcasts and some really accomplished podcasters, and working with the HubSpot podcast network as their coach, getting to see, the challenges that people continued to face consistently and getting a sense of what they were. And also just the, you must see this, Chad. It's kind of cool that we're, co-writers on this chapter and we get to do this, but there's a lot of BS out there in the world of podcasting, not in the podcast, but there's a lot of people telling you start your podcast. It's going to be easy. There's this trick or that trick, and kind of commoditizing it and not really recognizing the fact that there's a lot of creativity to it. There's also a lot of determination and persistence. It's not easy to build an audience. And that's not to say that, I encourage anyone who has something to say to share it, but I just was really uncomfortable with some of the ways it was, the unrealistic expectations that were being put out there for people. And what happens when, I love this, somebody I interviewed told me this, when you get bad advice, the damage is kind of double, because you take that advice and you don't succeed because the advice was bad, but then you think, oh, I guess I'm a failure. I guess I didn't have it in me, because you think the advice worked for other people, or you think it was that easy, and it could be really deflating for people. And half of my coaching sessions were just telling people like, actually, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. And that contributed. We could go down a whole other area of like imposter syndrome, either,
Yes.
From both, the person doing it, but then also, as someone who regularly gives people advice, like, I love that feedback of like, hey, that thing you told me like really helped me out. Because my always worry is like, oh my God, I told them to do this, and like, it's not going to work. And then they're going to blame me, and they're going to blame themselves. And, so, I'm glad to hear you say that. What are some other kind of common mistakes that you see people, from your coaching perspective? What are some other mistakes that you've seen people do, especially in like the early days, when they're first either thinking about podcasting, or they've got 4 or 5 under their belt? I'm sure we've all seen kind of, folks make all kinds of do things that they maybe regret. So, what are some highlights there? And I'm going to turn my volume up and go let the dogs in now.
Okay,
I can
sure.
see them on my camera.
And by the way, since Chad is leaving me, if anybody else wants to comment, so I feel like I'm not alone here, like, just let me know you're watching, so I don't feel like I'm talking to the air while Chad goes to let the dogs in or out. So yeah, some of the common mistakes that I see, the biggest one is really that lack of clarity. And so we talk to people who will say, you say, what's your podcast about? And they say, I'm having great conversations with people. Well, that's cool. And thank you for the hello, I appreciate it. And so if you know that, what you really want to do, thank you, Al. So if you know what you really want to do is just meet people, well, then having great conversations is enough. But if you are trying to reach an audience, you really need to have a sense of who you're talking to and what they want to hear. And actually, I love this. I learned this in Scott Galloway's Brand Sprint, which is, it was a business idea, but it works totally for podcasts, which is it different? Is it valuable? And is it sustainable? And I think it's really like a great model to apply when you're starting a podcast is it different? right? Are there already other podcasts out there? And by the way, being different might just mean like your take on it. It doesn't mean, there could be a million coffee roasting podcasts, but yours is going to be different if you bring your own voice to it. But is it different? Is it valuable, right? And value doesn't have to be like 10 tips for coffee roasting. Value might be camaraderie, or like a peek behind the scenes, or storytelling, or information, or inspiration, or motivation. It could be a lot of things, but is it valuable? And then is it sustainable? In other words, like, can you keep doing it? Or are you going to say all the things you want to say and then be done?
Let me take myself on mute. Yep, I'm back. Thank you for letting me deal with that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the differentiator piece, right? And the sustainability piece. Those are the two things that I know I always push, especially when talking with corporate clients, right? It's like, we've got to get past, kind of, because I'm this person. It's like, it's because I have this job. That's what makes me different. It's like, no. Like, your experience, this company, I talked about it this morning in my session, right. I'm working with both startups and 100-year-old companies, right? They both have really unique value, right? One is like, what made you start this company? The other is like, how are you still around after 100 years? Right. Those are unique things. It's not, you're the SVP of global blah, 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 right? Like that.
Right.
That's not a distinguishing. And the sustaining piece is really hard. And I feel like, I wonder what your experience like that has been, particularly on the coaching side, again, getting, I've done 20, I've done 50, right? Like, I did a whole year where I did it every week, but like, I'm getting 3 new listeners a week. Like, what's the advice that you're giving folks kind of then to kind of keep at it?
Yeah. So there's a couple things when people get to burnout that I suggest. And some of them you could guess, and some of them are kind of counterintuitive, right? One of them is sometimes when you're burnt out, you got to work harder. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when I was working with my client on our show, and I got to a point where I was like, I just feel like I am burnt out. There is nothing left. I can't do this. And his response was to suggest that we go to 3 days a week instead of 1 day a week, or 4 days a week. And it actually totally reinvigorated me. It got me re-engaged. It was a new challenge. It got me excited. So sometimes doubling down. The other one that I find a lot is, say you have a podcast about crocheting, right? Because you started it because you love to crochet. And what happens is you get into the podcast and you do 20, 40, 50 episodes, and maybe you are not crocheting anymore, right? And so maybe you need to get back to do a little more crocheting, so you are back talking about what you really like to do, right? So those are two that I think. And then the third one I talk to people about is when I would work with coaching clients, I had my 5 Ps, right? And the first P was purpose. And it wasn't that like big pie in the sky purpose, like world peace, or, but it was pragmatically speaking, like for some people, the purpose is I want to network. Like, I want to meet cool people like Chad. Some people, the purpose is I want to, sell my new book, or I want to grow my email list. So kind of reassessing what is that P, and do you need to change it? Because sometimes, like, with the podcast I worked with that client on, when we started, it really was to sell a book. But then the book was published, and we had to reassess and say, what are we getting out of it? How does it support the business? How does it support us as people creatively? And reassess and reassign what the purpose of it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes that changes. Sometimes the format needs to change. Maybe, you need to bring on a co-host. I mean, I think about, even Mark's podcast, right, has evolved a few times over the years of, just him, different, a consistent co-host. Now he's got this rotating co-host. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, kind of, do what you need to do to kind of reinvigorate it and kind of breathe in some new life.
I actually want to bring up one more point. So I did a workshop, and I was lucky that I had a couple of friends who had over 100 episodes join me in this workshop. And so I asked them, and one of the things that all the people that had continued that long said was the audience was there for them, and to trust the audience. And so what they found 100 episodes in was if they needed to completely change the format, one of them had a death in the family and decided that they needed to talk about it. And it was one of the most popular episodes. So this idea that, we do need to have a clear value proposition, but I love this phrase too. People come for the value or the concept or the content, but they stay for the host. And so, if I have a podcast about marketing and you want to learn about marketing, you're going to search and you're going to find me and you're going to listen. But if you don't like me, you're not going to keep listening. And if you do like me, you're going to take it if I go off track a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that leads to the ultimate expression, and this idea has come up a couple of times. I'm going to talk to Fiona about it later on, right? When an actual community pops up around, right? And if the podcast is kind of the shiny object at the top, right? Because typically by then you probably have at least some way for users to talk to each other, whether it's, a social media or a Discord or message, whatever, Patreon, whatever it happens to be. I mean, I know that there's a podcast I've been listening to for more than 10 years, right? And they've also kind of evolved. They now do it as a video chat. It's kind of a multi-person, it's a round table that changes people in and out. But the occasionally I'll tune into the actual the video live stream, and I look at the YouTube chat, and I think that half the people in there aren't actually even listening to what's being talked about in the show. They're just talking they're just hanging out and talking to each other, because Wednesday afternoons at 3:00, like that's when I see my friends, right? And it's like, it's a communal thing. To your point, like they came for the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
They're not really even paying attention. Maybe they're actually listening to it later on, in the download, and it's just, hey, this is the only time I get to speak to. I mean, they get, probably 1,000+ people in there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the only time I get to talk to like-minded people about this topic. I can listen to them later. I can't talk with people later though. So
I love that, because it speaks back to what we were talking about, value, right? And I think, like, I had one client we worked with, they had a podcast for new moms, and they were having all these guests on and sharing education and information. And we started to actually look at the data. And what became obvious was that their listeners really did not care about the guests. They didn't care about the information. They just didn't feel alone. They were new moms, and they loved hearing the hosts, who were both moms, chatting and talking about their day and what they watched on TV. Those were the episodes that did well, rather than the ones that had, an educational topic with a guest. And so it's like the value was this keeping them company, so it's, I think we can get twisted a little bit about what we mean by value, but like in that podcast, it sounds like the value is like hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah, for sure. At least for some people, right? And again, they've been around a long time. I'm sure they're doing well enough. They're super serving a couple of different segments of folks there. So, we've talked about kind of individual podcasts, maybe hosts, how they've evolved. Let's take a step back, for as long as we've both been in this, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen, over, let's say, a decade, right? There's we can argue about when did podcasting start, but even just over the last 10 years, right? Like, what are the biggest things that you've seen change? And what, as someone who maybe is thinking about just starting a podcast now, like, what are then the implications of that for someone that should be they should be taking all those things into consideration?
Yeah, that's obviously, as you know, so many things have changed, but everything in sort of the whole media landscape has changed so much. But I'd say one of the more immediate kind of practical things that I think is different is, because podcasts were new and because there wasn't this just huge amount of content and live streams and interview shows and podcasts, you were more considered media. So if you had a podcast and you went to a conference and wanted a media pass, or even, people, you would hear these amazing stories of someone with a podcast with 100 listeners who could get huge stars to come on, because people didn't really have the discernment. It was just, it's media and someone's invited me to be on an interview and I'm going to do it. And I think people are a little more savvy, and it's a little harder to get that sort of clout that comes with being a media person in a podcast. And so from a practical point of view, it does mean, you know, you might have to work a little harder to get your great guests or your wish list of guests.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Just, you know, as the industry has evolved, you know, it's funny that you kind of bring up the media. Yeah, like what was once a novelty, and maybe, you know, you were able to get that media pass because like you were in the new hot thing. As podcasts have now established themselves, right, and actually are media, right? Right. There's journalists that have left big illustrious careers at, you know, or they've left big title jobs at mainstream journalism outlets to start a podcast. Like they're still journalists, they're still media, they're still being recognized. But I think that has actually given the industry itself a boost, right, and kind of justified its existence. But it's no longer the new sexy. I mean, the place I know about it the most, right, is as you know, I'm a big Disney fan. You know, so for a while the Disney podcasters were who Disney wanted, and they would, you know, show them the latest things. And there's still some of that, but you know, now it's the Disney TikTokers, right? It's the Disney Instagrammers.
You know what
like,
I think?
That's the sexy stuff for Disney now.
You know how I think about it? I think about it like writing. You know, like we all know how to write. Some of us write letters, some of us write in our journal, but some of us write for newspapers. Some people write ad copy. Some people write novels. Some people are bestsellers. A lot of people write books that nobody reads. And then there's a couple of bestsellers. And so I just think, you know, podcasts are becoming a more mature medium so that, you know, we worry about this is, you know, it's not the pen or the pencil that makes the writer good, right? And makes them successful. It's that combination of their marketing savvy, a little bit of luck, a great agent, and being a persistent great writer. And I think that's, you know, you asked about advice for a new podcaster, and it would be, it's not about the microphone, right? You can yes, you need a certain base level, you need a good sound, you need a decent microphone, but it's all the other stuff that makes you a great writer or makes you a successful podcaster is like practice, a lot of practice. That's the other one that I think people miss is the value of practice. But practicing, persistence, you know, being curious, always trying to strive to improve your craft. It's those things that are parallel to being a great writer, I think.
Yeah, it's a great point for people to kind of keep in mind, right? Like to your point, we know that like, oh, if I keep writing, I will get better at writing. But there are a lot of people that think, right, talking, being present, it's the same thing as you know, being a speaker on stage, being able to like all of those things are learnable, they're teachable.
Yes.
You know, the more you do it, like it is just like anything else. Yeah, there are folks that might have stage fright. Yeah, there are folks that, oh, I hate the sound of my own voice. Like you get past all that stuff pretty quickly. You know, we've got a few minutes left, bringing it back to maybe kind of the brand marketing side. You know, our chapter was called the power of podcasting. Would love your thoughts on this. You know, I think we hear, oh, like there's so many podcasts, it's impossible to break through, or oh, didn't you see the latest data? Less people, you know, podcasting is dying. You know, what do you say to folks that like kind of the naysayers? You know, do you still believe that there's power in podcasting, you know, as kind of a marketing and content engine?
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, obviously, right? That was a softball question a little bit, but yeah, I absolutely believe in it. And there's a couple things that brings to mind. One is that it's not always the pre-purchase in the sense of, so for Spartan Up, when I worked with Spartan Race and we started the podcast to sell a book, right? And then we sold the book was done. What we realized later was it became a retention strategy. So somebody does the race. How do they stay involved in the culture? How do they stay involved in the community? How does that become more than just one race and a lifestyle that they start to participate in and want to come back to and repeat? So from a brand point of view, I think also thinking that power, like be open-minded and flexible about what your goal is and whether that podcast can help you with it. It's not always with selling. It might be somewhere else in the journey. It's definitely in most cases not sort of a top of funnel thing. It's kind of a relationship building thing. It's a trust building thing. So for example, if you have, you know, a coaching course or something like that, if you're a coach or you have a course, people may not find you through the podcast, but once they find you, they'll get to know you and trust you through the podcast and convert and make that sale. So there's a lot of different ways that a podcast can be used. But I think number one, we talk all the time about attention and the attention economy and how we're fighting for attention. Well, one of the greatest benefits of a podcast is that you actually have a whole new section of attention available if you take away the visual. So in other words, if I have to watch an ad on TV or a YouTube video, I need full attention. But with a podcast, I can be going for a run, driving my car, gardening, folding the laundry. So all of a sudden, a whole new section of your audience's time opens up to you that wasn't available if you're using those other mediums. And so just for that reason alone, it's like a new channel of access. And even though it is crowded, you do have to work to grow your audience. You do have to get clarity of message, all those things we talked about. If you do them, it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely right. No silver bullet. There's no way to just get to the top of the charts or anything like that, right? And even I would say notoriety doesn't guarantee success, right? We've seen a whole lot of famous people that have a whole lot of millions of followers, subscribers, whatever it is, launch a very high profile podcast, and they do season 1 of 12 episodes, and they're never
I always
to be heard
think in
from
those
again.
cases like they didn't have a good coach or a producer because they had a producer who was probably afraid of them. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, their producer probably wouldn't tell them like, hey, you got to practice this, or hey, you know what, that open was not engaging enough, or, have you looked at your retention numbers? People are starting to listen, but they're leaving 2 minutes in. And sometimes those people that are really well known, nobody, either they won't tolerate it or nobody has access that will tell them those hard truths, which you can say kindly, but you need to say them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it's just they for whatever reason they got bored with it, right?
Yes,
They committed to season 1 because their agent sold it to them, and they're not really sold on it as they could be doing something else. I mean, particularly over the last couple of years, I think we saw people, some famous people kind of start this up as like, this will be something fun to do. And yeah, it'll be easy. I can do it from my home, from my closet, whatever it have. It'll be fun. I think to a lot of what we've talked about, the ones that have really embraced it and had a real community form around them have been really successful. And I think a lot of them will just be kind of the footnotes in kind of the write downs of Spotify and iHeart and Odyssey and everyone else that spent a lot of money to get these things off the ground. Well, thank you so much, Marion, for being an amazing co-pilot during writing this chapter with me, for sticking your hand up and volunteering to be part of the book, and for giving your time tonight. Let us just I'm going to throw the QR code up.
I wanted you to ask what's your favorite part of being the Rise community or of writing the book? And I was going to say it was Chad, because we got to do the Rise report with Dan, which has been really fun, and co-writing the chapter and getting to know you has been really fun. But you didn't set me up with that one.
I didn't. We could talk, I feel like, for another half hour, but I've got other guests to get to. That yes, absolutely. Being part of this community, meeting a lot of the folks that have been on this calls has been hugely a great thing for me. I know you echo that as well. It's been fantastic getting to know you over these few months. Writing this book. I'll leave you with kind of any last words on the power of podcasting.
I think the last word is just stay grounded and trust yourself, because it is getting to be a crowded space, and the way that you can differentiate yourself, really the only way you can stand out, is to be yourself, because nobody else can be you, and it's the only place that you can really differentiate. Like, just double down on yourself, whatever weird, quirky thing that is, trust it and be yourself.
Amazing. Thank you, Marion. Have a great night. For everyone else that is watching, up next is going to be Jeff Tarn. We're going to be talking about direct mail and how there's still a ton of incredible value in the direct mail world. So I'm going to step away for about 30 seconds and I will be back with Jeff. Thanks. Hello, welcome back. Hi, everyone watching us over on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and across 23 different channels. I'm Chad Parsman. This is session 5 of the 24 hours of amazing marketing ideas to support the launch of the most amazing marketing book ever, which you can find out all the information, watch our previous live streams, sign up for information by checking out the QR code up on the screen right there. And with that, I'm going to welcome Jeff Tarn. Am I saying that right? Tarn?
You're saying it right, Chad.
Excellent. Welcome, Jeff. Appreciate you joining tonight. So, Jeff, you wrote chapter 21, Building Your Business with Direct Mail. Super interested. Yeah, we've spent so much today talking about like all this digital stuff and Twitter and email and Facebook and
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of that stuff. Yeah.
And so I'm interested to dig in to your chapter on direct mail. Jeff is, for those who don't know Jeff is the Chief Operating Officer of Gunderson Direct, one of the largest independent direct mail agencies in the US for over 25 years, it says here. You've helped mailers of all sizes, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, start and grow successful mail programs. So, Jeff, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Like we've been starting with everyone, would love to know, your kind of introduction to the community and why, what made you raise your hand and say, I want to be a part of this. I want to be part of this program and write a chapter on direct mail.
Well, I was part of the Rise community from the beginning. I was one of the owners of the Rise cryptocurrency. And after that, I knew after what happened with that, I happened to be traveling when that, the whole crypto winter happened really quickly. So I wasn't able to act or do anything about it. So Mark Schaefer owes me something. But really, he reached out to me. I was part of the community. He reached out to me. There wasn't a ton of competition to write a direct mail chapter, honestly. By the same token, it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. I've spent a career building, both, most on the agency side. So I'm pretty familiar with it. And I was excited to add a chapter. I provide some amount of content, a decent amount of content on the Gunderson Direct website. So I was very comfortable writing a chapter about it. A lot of my job isn't necessarily as much selling and making people understand the channel as it is anything that our agency does. So, I'm pretty fluent in the metrics and understanding and how to talk to people about direct mail. So it was a really good opportunity to help the kinds of people who will be reading this content, get them acquainted with the channel and helping them to understand how to use it to benefit their businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I want to get into kind of what you wrote in the chapter, takeaways, what your experiences have been like, but would love to maybe just start with like, what are some of the misconceptions, right? I feel like a lot of people hear direct mail and we probably all get the flyers and postcards and things like that, and maybe you think about it. I mean, the first thing I think of is like real estate agents, right? Like they're still using direct mail a ton, but while we're also talking with all of this other kind of, I'll say technology, direct mail is still working. So what are some of like the biggest misconceptions that you think people have about it, and why it should be, why it deserves to have a chapter dedicated to it in a book like this?
Primarily because it works. The Association of National Advertisers does a survey every year of its members. And every year for the last 3 years, I think it is the highest rated channel for ROI, return on investment, is direct mail. And it's like that because while it's not an inexpensive channel to get into, it's not a cluttered channel, right? Think of how many pieces of mail you get in a day versus how many digital marketing messages you see in a day across so many channels, or don't see in a day. Let me put it that way. So it's effective in that regard. And there are a type of product, especially that is uniquely suited to direct mail. And those are and when those are marketed right, we can get a lot of good response on that. Other misperceptions are that it's kind of old data sets and, people don't really read it and that kind of thing. The fact is, address-based data are the best data sets you can get, because if there's one thing we know, it's where you live. The IRS knows that, right? I mean, so that is the best data out there in terms of being able to reach people. So you may guess that you're reaching people in digital. They may not see your message in digital, but with direct mail, they have to touch your message at some point. And we know where you live, and we're going to make sure that it gets delivered to the person that we're marketing to. People say there's no innovation in direct mail. The fact is the data sets have gotten very sophisticated. The ability to target people on all kinds of attributes is really been honed in that because direct address data is so strong. So we can do really good targeting. There's a generally high ROI, and there are certain types of products, and you probably know what they are, in the financial area, in the subscription area, that it's extremely successful for. So, the fact that people kind of feel the world has moved on to digital, there's a lot of that. But direct mail plays a very important role in marketing for many, many clients and many types of businesses.
Yeah, it's a great point, a great reminder. I mean, the number of days that I go to my mailbox and there's only 1, 2, maybe 3 things in it, to your point, compared to the number of ads that I ignore every time I open my iPhone is 10 times that, and just in one session. So that's it's a really great insight. What are some of the other kind of, if you could highlight maybe like 2 of the other big takeaways from your chapter of the book that people should really know if they're either thinking about, or maybe that you highlight to your clients that are considering maybe direct mail for kind of the first time?
That's a great question, because it's a bit of a unique channel, and it works a little differently than other, especially digital channels out there. There are really 3 key components that make up a direct mail program. Okay. The first of that is targeting. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter how great it is. It doesn't matter what an incredibly beautiful artwork and design and content you use. mail it to somebody who doesn't care, and you've thrown your money away. Someone can mail me a half off membership to a golf club that is the highest rated golf club in my area. I don't play golf. You wasted your money.
Same.
So therefore, targeting is really the number one issue. Now, if you're a local retailer or something along those lines, you have a footprint, you pretty much know what that is. If you're an e-commerce business and you're doing business more nationally, or you are a services business, really understand who your target is and how to buy that data effectively. So that's really important data. The second thing is, and this kind of gets forgotten, especially by a lot of people who are brand new to the channel, direct mail is very offer driven. Look at your direct mail from a lot of the regular mailers. There's almost always an offer, and that's because you can't click on an envelope or a postcard, right? So the offer has to be there because at some point we've got to drive you to another channel to respond. So offers are very important in getting people to respond, and putting an end date on that offer adds to the FOMO, which is what gets us to move and respond to something in a given time, and make sure that we put it on the top of a to-do pile instead of the bottom of a to-do pile. Fortunately, QR codes have come along, and that's helping that quite a bit because now people can respond immediately. But offers are very important. And if you really look at what's primary in a mail, offer and targeting are the top two, and the third is creative. And really the job of creative is to get in there, make sure people understand who you are, what your key benefits are, a couple things they need to know, and then make sure they really understand the offer and that there's a reason to act now, and there's something that they should be taking advantage of. So that's kind of the overview we give people who are relatively new to direct mail. And another point I would make is, if you're new to it, especially, probably want to work with a source that really understands it. Now, if you're a smaller business and you want to handle it yourself, you can find a printer near you who's done it before, understands data, won't let you produce something that will cost you $1.25 to mail, right? That kind of thing. So work with somebody who knows what mail works if you're doing it for the first time, for sure.
So much to unpack there. Like, I was taking notes. Let's start back at the top. Data sets and targeting, right? I think that it's a conversation that we have all the time with display, with social.
Right.
Again, for maybe a noob like me that's not thinking about that, I just think about, oh, everyone on my street got this flyer. It sounds like that's probably not the case. So what are the types of data sets that people are leveraging on top of direct mail, and maybe like an example that you've seen from some clients that have just really worked well?
Well, here's some really cool stuff that's going on in the industry right now when it comes to data. When in the old days, and still now, you say, okay, I want to mail to people who are 40 to 50 years old, own a home, and have 2 kids, right? That would be demographic data. We're moving down all the time towards getting closer to understanding intent data related to actual activity. So the first move towards that, which is very common right now, is behavioral data. So now what we're doing is we are finding databases that collect tons of transactional and other kinds of data. So now if we're marketing for an insurance brand, we look at what the people who are buying the insurance brand right now are doing. What is it that they have purchased recently? What are they looking into? What have they subscribed to recently? And we use that information and we go to these transactional and behavioral databases and we model what they're actually really doing at the same time as what people are really doing in that database. And we mail to people who are now doing something similar to the people who have done something we want them to do, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, so yeah, it's very similar to, right, like you set up lookalikes in Facebook. I mean, this is the same type of thing.
It's a lookalike.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a lot of
Um,
like look-alike modeling. But wait, now it's gone to another step, right? So it's called retargeting. So what we'll do now is we'll put a pixel on your website, and we will model behavior of people who convert and make a sale. And now we will track people who arrive at your website, track their behavior, and say, based on their behavior, they have pretty good intent to make a sale. Then what we do is we take that information, we match that visitor to an address-based database, and then we use a print-on-demand system. And within 3 days, 4 days of visiting a website, they've received a mailing. And that mailing can make a special offer to them regarding what they were looking for, and move them down that into the sales funnel using direct mail. So a different channel based on their behavior on a website. And that has been very effective. It's not inexpensive on a per piece basis, but the response rates are significantly higher, especially for certain industries. So
yeah, I got to imagine. I mean, that's so that this is the equivalent of you left something in your shopping cart, email. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be the extreme case of
Sure.
we got to mail this person. But what we're doing essentially is we are ranking people on their behavior while they're on a website, saying based on that behavior, that's a good prospect. Now, the issue with that, Chad, is it's a small quantity, right? I mean, how many people go to your website? How many people of them show that intent? And now what's going on in the industry, and this is brand new, is we're building intent-based databases on the fly. So based on behavioral aspects, based on site visits, et cetera, we're now going out and we're finding broader quantities of people to mail to for acquisition that give us very strong intent hints. And that's just come on board. That's brand new stuff. So.
Yeah, I was wondering when we get to AI in this part of the conversation, but yeah, I got to imagine being able to try and so we know that people that do this, how do we predict it out one step further of
That's right.
They haven't even done it yet. How do we predict that they're going to do the thing that predicts that their intent? I mean, that's incredibly fascinating. You also talked about creative. So, talk to me, because there's probably a couple of things that I think about, of things I get in the mail. Like one is, right, just an actual like purpose-based flyer, right? It's for one company and that's it. The other one is maybe more of the, hey, here's all of the, air conditioning people, and right, it's a whole booklet of like people,
right.
And they buy an ad and the thing that goes out, twice a week. And then the third would be an actual letter, something that looks like a letter, right? And I know I get them from everything from maybe places I've donated to before, to all kinds of other things. So, from a creative standpoint, like what are the things that you're really talking about? Is it really just kind of that first group, or is it really anything that is, print and could show up in your mailbox?
You have to think really carefully. Let me just step back and say you're really onto something with that question, because unlike other channels, we've taken mailings that didn't work and we've changed the format of the mailing, and suddenly it works really well. So in other words, we had a letter, and the letter was in an envelope, and the letter did okay. And we take essentially that same copy and we make it into a self-mailer or a flyer that mails without an envelope, and suddenly it works very well. So you need to think very carefully about what the physical aspect of the creative is going to be, because people have to touch it and they will make a decision consciously or unconsciously about what they've received. Is it what goes in an envelope? You probably don't want to get a mortgage offer that is specific to your situation and has dollar amounts, et cetera, on a postcard, right? As a matter of fact, it'd be illegal to do that in a lot of cases. So certain offers clearly work better in an envelope. They carry more weight in terms of, your perception of the brand and that sort of thing. When it's very, very offer and immediate kind of response oriented, such as a sale down the street, and the store, you don't got to spend a lot of time doing anything but getting people's attention. And a postcard will do that. So you do have to think about who you are, what you're selling, and what your intent is to move people down and, to get the sale. And we spend a lot of time doing that in formats. And there are times what we will do is actually test for a client the same exact message, the same exact offer, the same exact list. It's just, do we do it in an envelope? Do we do it outside of an envelope? Do we do it as a little booklet? And it's really kind of surprising that can drive, those format changes can drive response. And people who are not engaged in physical media don't have that perception, right? I mean, it's right. So it's kind of an interesting thing to teach people that, and their eyes to pop when they realize, gee, that did better than that, and it's the same stuff. But yeah, we see that.
Yeah, it's incredibly eye-opening, right? Because again, I mean, I come from the digital, I think about digital first, right? And I think a lot of people do that, right? But it's the same thing of changing the subject line of an email, changing the format, from image-based to text-based, right? It's all of those same tricks that we use in other types of forms. But from what I'm hearing from you is like, we don't have to exist in a box, right? When we think about display ads, right, they're the same size, right? There's 3-4 major sizes across the whole internet that I now need to compete with. From what I'm hearing with you is there's kind of limitless options. As long as it fits in someone's mailbox, you can kind of tailor and tweak and repurpose things in a bunch of really interesting and creative ways that make you really stand out from potentially, your competitor down the road.
You can do that as long as you fit the USPS standards, and they'll let you mail almost anything.
Yep.
But it goes suddenly from 38 cents a piece standard mailing to $1.25 because you decided to do something square. And
interesting.
So it's all about being automatable by the post office. Now, if you're mailing small quantities and you really want to get people's attention, that could be a very worthwhile way to go. Spend an extra 30, 40, 50 cents and really get someone's attention. That could be smart. But for a large volume mailer, those pennies are significant. So you just have to be thoughtful about it. And that's why in the beginning I was saying, if you don't have experience, deal with someone who does, or you could find yourself with a surprise when you drop it off at the post office.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So continuing on kind of this thought of, this is eye-opening. Maybe there are people watching this that had never thought about direct mail before. And I mean, from what I'm hearing from you about, data sets, this idea of offers, this idea of, playing with creative, again, I think of, right, the local realtor. I think about, maybe even a new restaurant's opening up, something like that. What are some of the more, I'll say, unusual, creative, different, where, companies or examples maybe that you've worked with that of folks that said, I just want to try it. And it came out of left field, something maybe you wouldn't normally think about that would have a successful direct mail campaign. Would love kind of any experience there just to kind of continue to open my eyes and, the other folks that are watching today.
Think carefully about the value of the sale. In some cases, we have worked with companies where the value of the sale is so significant that they're willing to spend $20 or $30 to reach somebody and make sure they open that mail. So what we might do is make something look like it's in a FedEx package. And sometimes we even send a FedEx package. Okay. Other times we do what's called dimensional mailing. So now this, it's one thing to avoid an envelope, but it's really hard to avoid a box. Right. And sometimes a simpler way to refer to that is lumpy mail. So you get an envelope and it's not a box, but it's an envelope, and there's something there's something in there that isn't flat. All right. It just feels like, so you have to open up, you have to see what's inside of it. So those are things you can do when you want to really get somebody's attention in the mail. The other thing, believe it or not, that can work a lot of times and is integrating direct mail with digital. Okay, because address-based data is as strong as it is, we can append digital footprints to it as well. And when we do that, now we've got direct mail. We're adding a digital touch, maybe adding display because we have an IP match on that data. So by adding to all that, suddenly the mail gets more effective, or I should say the tide rises for everybody, right? So we're doing more and more of that. We're also experimenting with interesting uses of QR codes. All right.
Yeah.
Now, the wonderful thing about QR codes and direct mail is finally someone can just take the, hey, I got the mail. I put my phone on there and hey, there's a response. It's trivial, the whole thing. And now what we're doing is we're developing our own enhanced QR capabilities so people can say, I want to take advantage of the offer now, or they can actually set alerts in their mail. And that's a new technology that we've just developed. It's our own IP called Respond Fast. So, Post Reminder. So Post Reminder is a way to get mail and remind yourself later to respond because you're busy right now.
Interesting. I'm throwing up the QR code here for folks watching. If you want to buy the Kindle version of The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever, it's been phenomenal seeing the QR code kind of resurgence over the last few years, right? Everything from menus at restaurants to reminders to business cards, right? It's kind of replacing or enhancing a lot of things and making life easier. And it sounds like there's still some innovative stuff that's happening in their space, especially as it comes to physical. Would love, we've got a couple of minutes here to wrap up. I love this like lumpy mail. Like I just love that term, but I love the idea. And I think I'm thinking about, I've gotten things like that. So who's the most surprising like company or the type of company or the type of business that would use something like that, to get someone's attention? Are we talking kind of luxury retailers? Like what's really the use case here that you've seen people use it to kind of maximum effectiveness?
The maximum effectiveness of that is very often nonprofit mailing.
Interesting.
Okay, because giving you a gift is a way to get you to donate.
And so going back to kind of this data sets and offers, I mean, I got to imagine they're sending this to maybe their high affinity, their kind of, top tier, or trying to get someone, or really to anyone.
You would think that, but the way we do it in direct mail is what we actually do is we test it at different level targets. So the people who are who would be regular donors, right? They may not need much of an incentive to give more. Right. The people who are brand new, we want them to open up the package and we want them to really understand what's going on in there. And a lumpy mailing will do that. The people in the middle, we test that. The people who gave and haven't given in a while, maybe that's another way to get their attention. So there's just so many strategies that you can test through the mail and to get people's attention. But you see a lot of that in nonprofits, and realtors were doing it for a while. Right, you get something like the sponge that they'd send through the mail, and you put it under the water, it expands. Gimmicky stuff like that.
Yeah.
Local retailers occasionally do that. I've gotten rocks in the mail from my local landscaper. Right, so there are a lot of interesting ways to do it. Large companies typically don't do it that much.
Sure.
And the reason they don't do it is it gets expensive on a per person basis. Nonprofits mail at a lower rate, and if you donate money, you can quickly be worth that effort.
That fascinating, to think about, and I think certainly, like I said, eye-opening for me. I hope for some other folks. I think definitely when they come across this in the book, it's in the kind of marketing standards, which I thought was great, kind of kicks off that section of the book. I think that's it's gonna get a lot of marketers to kind of rethink, hey, it feels outdated, but just from hearing your passion and the things that you've just outlined here, and I know there's a lot more in your chapter, I think a lot of people will probably take a second look at the potential power of direct mailing.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I said, I'm kind of at this point an ambassador for the channel. I really just have a lot of belief in it and had a lot of great experience with it. So
That
thank
comes
you.
that comes across. Yeah. And so thanks for being part of the community, contributing, spending your time tonight, sharing this with us, being an author. Would love to just leave the last minute to you of anything else that you want to say about the experience, or kind of something for folks to take away, from your industry.
Well, I would say the Rise community has been kind of an eye opener for me. I spend a lot of time researching and understanding different channels. And what's great about Rise is it's kind of a shortcut to all that, right? There's so many people talking about so many different things that any day of the week, I can kind of find myself looking at a conversation that I would have never thought to ask the question. So that has been a really good experience for me as well, and has been eye-opening. And I've been able to translate some of that actually to the world of direct mail and say, "Hey, people, here's what's going on. Here's what's going on in the metaverse. Here's what's going on in AI. Here's things that we need to be thinking about for our business as well." So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time, Chad. I really do. I mean, you put a lot into these interviews, and you did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, it's easy, talking to someone that clearly has like the passion for their industry, like you do, knowledgeable. So yeah, thank you for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Up next, I'm going to wrap up my session. I'm going to talk to Fiona Lucas. For those of you that have been with us for a while, she was here earlier, one of the coordinators to make this happen. We're going to talk about her chapter on the evolution of marketing, and where communities are going to be in terms of marketing. So with that, I will be back in about 30 seconds with Fiona. Thanks again, Jeff. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Hello, welcome back for the final interview of session 5 of the 24 hours of amazing marketing ideas. I am here with Fiona Lucas. Everyone else has been on the east coast of the US, and you are calling from about as far away as we can get. Where are you dialing in from today, Fiona?
Yeah, I'm coming in from a town called Geelong, which is the other side of the bay from Melbourne. A lot of people have heard of Melbourne, Australia. We've got the beautiful, beautiful bay on this side, and we've actually got quite a pleasant autumn day because we're in the reverse of everything. So heading into winter here while you're heading into summer.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you. getting late here, but I guess you're starting your day off down there. Yeah, just want to reiterate, thank you for everything you've done for help organizing this, and really excited for our discussion today about community that you wrote for the book. But for those of you not familiar, maybe you weren't here earlier, not as familiar with Fiona, I'm assuming you wrote this about yourself, so hopefully it is like top-notch copywriting here.
You know what? I think I didn't, but
So we're going to learn together. Fiona Lucas is a skilled and innovative Australian-based social media strategist, trainer, presenter, and author with over 30 years of experience in both business and digital marketing. With a passion for building thriving online communities, Fiona specializes in delivering engaging training sessions that empower clients. So fantastic. Love the background. Really excited to dig in to
all about respect.
chapter today. It's all about respect. I love your all the stuff you've got in the background there. So before we dig into kind of the nuts and bolts of your chapter and about community and kind of the power of it in the future, we've been talking all day with folks. What made you raise your hand and not only become a member of the Rise community, but when you heard Mark's pitch on the book, like what was your initial reaction, and why did you say like I've got to write a chapter?
Well, I got into Rise because I was one of the early. I met with Mark and a group a couple of years ago at Social Media Marketing World. He had a meeting and he said, "Who wants to learn about Web3 and NFTs?" And we all went, "Yep, we want to learn together." And he said, "I'm going to do this thing." So I've been there sort of from the get-go, and I've loved everything about it. And everything I love about community is in this community. So that just makes it win-win all the way around. And when the book project came up, I was excited because I can procrastinate. I get a lot of thoughts in my head. I'm always writing stuff. Don't always put it out there. And I have previously written a book, which is in the background over there, but that was in 2013. It's been a long time since I published. So that book was a cyber safety book called Future Proof Your Kids. And Facebook was still pretty new then, and people were not engaging particularly well. And then I sort of realized that small businesses were struggling too, particularly with their reputations and things, because suddenly they had, if you got an unhappy customer, they were putting it all over the web. And so there came to be I could see that people really needed some help there as well. So that's how I ended up kind of falling into social media from originally a business and accounting background.
Amazing. I love, particularly in this community, how varied not only what we do, but also where we've come from, all of the different places and stops along the way that have gotten us to kind of where we are today, right? We've got everything from like lawyers and engineers to artists to musicians. I mean, it's been fascinating getting to know everyone for sure. So talk to me a little bit. So your chapter is community, the evolution of marketing, right? And so let's just kind of kick it off there. Like why is community the evolution of marketing? Why is it that seems to imply it's the next phase, it's where we're going to from where we are today. And what were some of the kind of highlights from your chapter on kind of getting that point across?
Yeah, well, I think the way I see it is that, and I hate using this word humanize because it gets overused, but the truth is the more marketing was saturating, people getting over it, right? And you see it in even like, getting celebrities to promote things. A lot of people are a bit tired of that. They're like, you don't really use that product anyway. And I think we started looking more to real people to engage with, and that's where community really has got the benefit, and where there's nowhere else to go. And Mark will tell you that himself if you read his most recent book about belonging to the brand.
Absolutely.
He very much we're very aligned with the way we think in regards to that, is that people have a sense of belonging. They're sick of being sold to. They want to be part of a journey. They want to have their say. And so therefore, marketing has to step up and go, you know what? It's not us pushing out anymore. We have to start, taking in, and we have to let people influence us and be prepared to open up and actually listen and evolve from that.
And so, I mean, all great points. Totally agree with it. I mean, I think, especially for those of us here, but my previous background is in social, and I came to that from things like message boards, right? I'm very active in lots of communities, and I one of the things I want to talk about is kind of how you see what defines a community. But purely from a marketing perspective, what are maybe, and as I'm seeing some of the things that you covered in your chapter in the book, what are the things that marketers, maybe particularly for brands or for someone that's starting out their own personal brand, what should they be thinking about, if they want to go down this road of kind of evolving and actually, having a community participate as part of their marketing efforts?
Well, I think for a start, they've got to think about why they're doing it, and you have to be prepared to see it as more of a long game, right? You don't build community overnight, and it doesn't have to be crazy intensive, because if you build it right, the community starts to do the work for you. But the point is that you really do need to be prepared to put the energy in. I've seen people create, like Facebook groups quite often, and all they did was push out their sales stuff, and the community fails because all they're doing is trying to sell. So you have to be, I think we have to take a little bit of ego out if we really want a community to thrive, because you have to allow the community to step up and give them some control. And that can be really hard, particularly when you build a great community around something, and then you suddenly realize, well, for this to keep growing, I need to step back a bit and let some of this evolve. And that can be scary sometimes. And, there might be people that go off and do a bit of a side gig, kind of taking some of your ideas or whatever, but there's always room in the world for collaboration. And if they leave your community, well, then they probably weren't the best fit. So, and I think that's one of the things, is when you build a beautiful community with like-minded people, then it tends to thrive. It's when you get really big opposing views that it can be hard to manage, because, they'll come in and want to push their point of view across. So I think you've got to be prepared to put in the work to think about not only your why, but why would someone want to be part of your community? You've got to put yourself in your potential community members' shoes and say, what value is this going to bring to them? Which we do all the time when we think about anything in marketing, really. It's always about what's in it for them. But that's never the truth. You are asking people to give up their time, a lot of their time sometimes, to immerse themselves into a community. So therefore, it can't be just all about you. Of course, you're not going to just do it for no reason whatsoever, but it is the best way to build loyalty. And I think I said in the book, that is a rare beast these days. People are fickle. They will get put off very easily. So therefore, building community can really allow you to tap into the incredible resource that you actually have from those people within your community, because you learn so much from them whilst they're also gaining from you.
Yeah, I mean, so much. I mean, there's like 10 different questions that I want to ask from just what you said there. But one of the things that I think would be important for folks to hear, you talked about, like, you have to be prepared to put in the work. What does the work look like? For if you want to grow and sustain a community, what are the things that you should be thinking about as a community organizer, particularly from, like a marketing perspective? Like what are those things that I need to be prepared to do?
Okay, so I guess number one, why are you doing it? So we've set out, okay, we want to build a community. Perhaps it's, a new brand. We really want to get, SaaS could be really good, evidence of that. You've got something, a new bit of online software that you really want to promote, and you want to get people excited about it. And so if I say picked up something like, I know we're on Restream, but StreamYard as an example, if you look at the work they put in when they built their community, they put in, the guys that started it were there every single week for ever, have done their town hall where they are telling the community what's going on, what's changing, what's working, what's not. They're listening, they're open to what's going on. And so that is work. That's a commitment. So you do have to look at what kind of commitment you're willing to do. And then if you also don't want to have where you're just throwing in a couple of moderators and you're not there. I honestly believe that everybody within an organization should have some sort of touch point with the community at any time, because your people in your organization are also one of the biggest assets you can have. And when they're excited about the business they work for, and then you let them share that with people who are, engaging with your business on the other side, then that also really opens up the community to just show how much you appreciate them, and it is all about, relationship marketing. It's about building relationships between people, and being prepared to do a lot of listening. And you've got to think about who are your stakeholders right across the board. And the other step you want to bring in is who are you going to get in that community to help? Community manager, moderator. Don't necessarily, I often see, in a very small community, you might sort of have a crossover between management and social media, but really a community manager is not there to put up pretty posts. They're there to really take in all the analytics, look at what the sentiment is going on, to tap into each of the people, to seek out who is the evangelists within your group as well, because reaching out to them, and then bringing them higher up into the community to say, hey, we really appreciate what you do. We'd love you to share this, to do that. Perhaps you might invite them to be a moderator. So that's part of the steps you have to do. And giving some training as well. Something that I've seen missed quite often is that, particularly in a big group, and, often people just think about a community as only being within whatever ecosystem that it's built on. But if you do advertising about your community as well, your moderators are quite often moderating not just within the community but outside, and that's where you get a lot of spam and quite often confronting kind of images as well. So I think it's always worth bringing in a consultant to help you set up, to make sure that you have got all the boxes ticked, that you have covered all the bases that you want to do, and then have your strategy there ready to launch. You want to have content ready to go in there so that when people start joining, they don't go, oh, here's a blank space, and then they sit there. And what you've got to remember is that you will get lurkers. And, it's not the best name, but, people that there are a lot of introverts. They do not want to engage necessarily. Doesn't mean they won't become some of your best evangelists, because they will walk away going, I'm in this group and I get all this great information and no one's making me go online in front of anyone, So we've got to embrace all the different people within our community, and think of ways that we can do things for them that make it so that they can have a better experience, even if they don't want to necessarily be someone who's commenting all the time.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best communities, right, their biggest value is just years worth of answering questions, right? And those answers might come from your top 10, 5, 2% of community members, but that provides value, and again, depending on the community, that could be providing value, for years. Thinking about, some of the communities that I'm a member of, right? There might be a post that's, 9 years old, but it still might have, the definitive answer to whatever that question is. And, people refer to it. That person might not even be in the community anymore, but, they're still providing value. I love the other thing, that you said about kind of the community managers and moderators. I mean, the ones that I know, that are the best are basically like sociologists, right? Like they get in there and really understand like what drives the community, right? They're not just throwing out the like, oh, Monday, here's the Monday morning topic of the week, right? Like I think we see a lot of that. Some of that could be successful as long as that question being posed is something truly relevant to the community and not just, oh, hey, our market research term is wants to know this. Maybe this will be a good play, right? I think, you start seeing people take advantage of community members there. What were you going to say?
Oh, I think it's like in some communities, they actually want that. They want you to ask them how they are at the start of the week, and they'll love that. I think that's really important. And I just saw Daniel's just written up there that people absorbing the culture rather than, that is a much nicer word to term, although a lot of people do understand.
It's still a mouthful. It's still a mouthful, Daniel. I need like one. I need one word.
One word. I'm sure we could have something. One of the things when we're talking about, looking at the psychology, that's where I think AI is going to come in really, really strongly, because the sentiment that it's going to be able to analyze in the background is going to be really interesting, and I think will allow us to get a lot more depth into being able to deliver even better programs. And I'm not saying AI to deliver them, because I still think one of the things about community will be that, hey, I want to actually connect with a real person, and that will be the strength, is that where do you come to get that? You come here. And one thing I did want to mention, though, is even though within your community you get all these great answers and people will, ask a question, it is a good idea to separate. Don't put your support into that community, because then it can get overtaken with just people complaining, oh, my software's not working, or this isn't doing. So we always direct them to the support system, and keep that separate. Yes, sometimes someone might say, hey, I was trying to do XYZ, and someone else is going to answer, and great, it cuts down your work so much if they're doing that. And that's what you want them to be, helping each other, but you don't want it to become, just a depository for all these people sort of going, oh,
for sure.
I've got an issue, because sometimes we always know that it can be one person that's got a little bit disgruntled, and they can change the whole feeling of a situation. So being very quick on your moderation is something really important too, to make sure you're guiding people to the right place and doing it with kindness and empathy, which is the biggest thing that you need to have if you're going to have a community, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. I think about some communities where sometimes you want to maybe just put either the support or more of the technical or whatever the product happens to be, right? Let's put that into a section so that it doesn't kind of corrupt the rest of it. Would love your we've got a question here as well, but would love your thoughts on kind of unofficial communities. And I've seen this happen a couple of different, right, where it pops up and someone's like a fan and creates the unofficial fan page that becomes almost the de facto fan page. Or I've seen it the other way, where brands have tried to start communities, maybe it's on one platform, right? They're like, oh, we're going to start a LinkedIn group and a Discord and a WhatsApp. And it turns out like, hey, there's really only a handful of people over here in the WhatsApp. Like, for those of you who are here, feel free to keep doing it, but we're going to step away. What are your thoughts about that? How much does a community should be prepared when they go onto a platform? Do you recommend they need to stay there a certain amount of time, or is it the type of thing that they can kind of cut and run if they just aren't getting traction?
If it's not working, you've got to move with the times. I mean, a platform, we know social media platforms are moving objects, right? Facebook's hung in there a long time. We hope it stays. But for example, if we always talk about in marketing, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But at the same time, if you're building a really great community, but you're feeling like you want to move, then you need to, it's just like any sort of change management, project management that you do outside in the business world. If you want to shift your community, perhaps, and you might want to go to something like Discord, you want to look at what people want from you, and does the platform provide the right things for you to deliver that? So, if they want to have live videos, if they want to be able to split up into groups, have subsets of different things, you've really got to look at what each program has for you. If you start a community and it's not working, well then, hey, why isn't it working? Straight up, what were we doing wrong? For a brand, sometimes it's just because they've gone and going, hey, buy our stuff. It's still more about the buy rather than changing. And I think with the use of things like NFTs and stuff like that, they're going to probably be able to entice people in another way. But to look at brands that do it well, look at, quite often it's like your activewear and your shoes and things like that. Lululemon is a really good example of where they have a range of different ambassadors. They've got a different hierarchy of people that are behind their community. It is all about, the lifestyle, and they've embraced it, and people who have that lifestyle love the wear, and it all fits together, and it's made them a cohesive group, and also really built that brand loyalty around it. They're proud of the outfits they wear, they like to share what they're wearing, and they give lots and lots of tips, and they bring people in that are always good high level information, about how to improve whatever it is you're doing. They have their hubs. They've gone into the real world. They're not just a community online. So a community can be not just online; it can go into the real world as well. It's
for sure.
I mean, I talk about this for hours and hours.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's again, like I think about I mean, even just car cultures, right? Like I'm a Subaru owner right now. There's Subaru, everything from communities, again, online, there's, message boards, there's tuner communities, there's outdoor communities, all the way to, I was previously a Jeep owner as well, right? The Jeep Wave is kind of right. It's just a very simple thing, but it's the fact that like Jeep people love to talk to other Jeep people. So I think, I love that idea that community can pop up in lots of different places. To your point, it's not just a Facebook group, a Discord, or something like that, right? There's lots of IRL places for community. So you talked about Lululemon. Would love. Do you have a maybe like an uncommon example, right? Like something that someone would be surprised that, like, oh hey, I wouldn't have think that like a community would pop up around that.
There are communities about all sorts of interesting things. There is a sexual health community that I've seen, which explores that kind of adult toys and stuff like that. And it's not actually my field of expertise, but that people want to have, if there's a question people have and they want to learn more about it, then a community can build up around it. Gaming communities have been around forever. That is really, I think, where the original forums and things like that has all grown from there. They started making products to help deal with the way people wanted to engage. So I think Rust-A-Lium, there you go. That is a different one. I just saw Daniel.
Is there a big Rust-Oleum community? Is that what he's saying? Like there's a, I mean, I guess I could see, I mean, there, paints and things like that. So I guess maybe they have an artist community or something like that.
There are thousands of artist communities. There are people that are great that are into, if they're in crafting communities, there's a lot of community around people who do animal rescue, things like that. And then you have your pop-up communities, and some of those have been the most beautiful to be involved in. So, for example, when Australia had massive bushfires a few years ago, every year people will get together generally through a Facebook group or something like that, but they pitch together, and it's when you see the best of humanity, and it's always just so heartwarming in the midst of tragedy how people will come together and help. And that was one of my early experiences with community. Was I saw a school had burnt down in our state, our island state, Tasmania, which is right down the bottom, and I was working the school system, and I just felt so bad that this had happened to them. And I thought, I'm going to start doing some fundraising because I've got lots of connections in education. Went on to a group that was there to help with, the fires, where they were actually coordinating, like rescue people stuck on a beach because the fires were right there. And they'll finding people who's got a boat that can go and get people. It was pretty full on. But I saw another girl there who was doing the same thing, Megan Yemmer, and I reached out to her, and she turned out to only, live an hour away from me, and we coordinated our efforts, and together we were able to get all the kids new books and stationery and their backpacks and their lunch, but like everyone just came together to donate things. We got money for the school so they could help to rebuild, and it was just a really, really beautiful experience, and showed me the power of community together as opposed to an ongoing community. But there's just so many different aspects to it, but when it comes to marketing, obviously we're looking at trying to build communities around. I mean, it's a bit of a joke. Someone said to me, but I don't really run. I've got a couple of private little communities, but I don't have this great big community around me because I'm too busy working with other people, because that's how I want to make theirs thrive. But down the line, I think I know that there are things that I'll grow, but because I'm involved I've got a lot of different interests, so therefore I've got lots of little fingers in the pie around things like film and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've been members of communities for the cars I've driven, the places I vacation. I'm a big Disney fan, so Disney, the Disney community, I say like capital C, and then there's a 1,001, mini communities, everything from, very specific characters to places you visit to, one that I love is so there's a thing called Disney Vacation Club. It's their timeshare. So there's a group that are just for people that, a lot of times these people, they're staying in suites, they have refrigerators, and they're like, oh, here's all the food I've got left over. I'm checking out on Tuesday. Who's checking in that wants to come, kind of take all this so that it's not being wasted. And so it's just this kind of pay it forward community, to your point, that right, like I don't need to be in there every day. I only need to be in there when I'm planning to arrive and when I'm leaving my vacation, right? So I only need to be an active member for maybe like 2 weeks out of any given time, but I'll pop in, while I need it, and then I pop back out.
Absolutely. And Cammie's just put up a note there saying that's a strength, working in other communities. It's effective for a lot less work. And it is, the idea, a thriving community, just they take on the work for you. You really don't have to do a lot necessarily, because if they're there empowering each other, that's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we're almost at time. Want to promote the community of the folks who wrote this book. So if you haven't yet, if you're watching, check out the QR code to the Instant Replay Hub for all of the content today from the 24 Hours of Amazing Marketing Ideas. There you'll be able to see all of the community members, the great content that we've produced throughout the day. You can subscribe to the email. I'm sure at some point we'll actually be promoting the Rise community itself through that page and through the emails for people that want to learn more and come and join us over in the Discord.
And buy the book.
and buy the book. Yes, absolutely. That's the quickest way to become a community member, is buy the book and read it and come.
Can I quickly answer Zach's question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just gonna toss over to the chat question. Yeah.
In one word, it was intimidating to write this chapter after Mark's book. Was very nerve-wracking, and when I sent it in, and he said, "Wow, you've done a great job," that was like the biggest compliment I could get. So, he is just such a magnificent proponent around community and around brand and belonging that, all the love to Mark because he's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. All the thanks to him for kind of kickstarting this community, this idea, for being the person that has connected folks like you and me and everyone else that people have seen throughout the day today. Really appreciate, again, cannot thank you enough for all the work you put into it, but thank you for contributing to the book. Thank you for spending another 30 minutes on camera with me today for this. Really appreciate it. Would just love to turn it over to you for any closing thoughts about your experience writing this chapter, working with the community to write the book, an interesting kind of meta-analysis of it took a community to write a book where you're writing about community.
It really did. And, it's become one of my favorite things. If someone says, what's a great community that you can talk about? Well, it's Rise is nothing better than it. I just want to thank Daniel. He's saying my chapter was excellent. Well, he was an excellent editor as well. So I like to appreciate, just wanted to send that back. Look, the experience has just been brilliant. Everything I love about this community, from being able to explore the metaverse, present in the metaverse, like the opportunities that this community gives you is second to none, because it ticks all the boxes for how a community we don't necessarily have to have Mark in there all the time, right? He comes with the goods, especially in the VIP community, which is just insanely good. And that's how you can level up a community as well, because you can bring in a different level of things. But everyone has been, and I think it highlights the importance of making sure you've got the right people in your community. And one thing to be is you do have to have a bit of a hard skin. There are some times when you have to get people out of a community, right? So you have to be able to do that graciously as possible. But if someone isn't a good fit, you don't want the whole, they used to say, a bad apple upsetting the whole cart, or whatever it is, the bold back. I think I just put two analogies in together and made a mess of that. But and apart from that, we do need to go, and I will be back very soon to do the next 3 hours. So I'll need to go and freshen up my voice a little, I think.
Amazing. Yes. Well, thank you.
Me, I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, you too, Fiona. Thanks again. One more time, I'll just throw up. Check out the QR code. You can buy the book right now. You can buy the Kindle version. You can buy the paperback version, I've been told, and there will be an audiobook version coming shortly, hopefully soon. So go buy the book there. Go check out the Replay Hub. And with that, thank you for letting me host for the past couple of hours. This was fantastic. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. And I will see you all over in the Discord. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.